Oh, that was a weirdly restless night. I think partially just because I was so thirsty. I actually went through about a third of my coffee water just because I kept waking up and needing something. Really not sure why last night I was so thirsty. Kind of worrying when I'm looking at the potential for, completely dry days up ahead. And today, in addition to it being the first of the New Mexico road walks, of what looks like a significant amount of road walks, but this is the section where people have reported some aggressive dogs, so. That backpacker with all the orange passed me again, so I guess they're just a little slower than me. Town days kind of mess with the rhythm out here. But oh boy, my pack feels nice when I'm headed into town. Very little food, and at the moment, almost no water. So I've got a couple of miles till the water stop, fill up, drink as much as I can, and then it's just running the road dog gauntlet to get into town. I need to charge everything, I need to buy food, and then I will hopefully get out of town at a reasonable hour tomorrow and see how I do. Current goal is going to be 20 miles a day-ish, if at all possible, from here on out. I was just talking to Jen this morning and planning the box to Pie Town. And from Pie Town, I go off into the Black Hills, is the plan. And that one is 154-mile carry to get to Winston. And that's also the one where the water situation is the most unknown. So that's going to be the big challenge and the fun part of this whole little New Mexico jaunt. But hey, weather's holding, calf seems to be doing okay. Achilles and wrist are only bothering me a little ways, so game on. Yesterday was actually a really, really good day, except for a little bit of chafing right towards the end. The way you can really tell how good a day is how long I'm listening to music, because as long as I'm feeling super enthusiastic and usually just thinking about various things or narrating videos that I wish I could record in town, stuff like that, I'll stay on music, and then when things start to drag, that's usually when I'll switch to an audiobook. For me at least, the audiobooks are easier to lose myself in, particularly the type of audiobook I try and stick with. I generally am looking for things that move relatively quickly, do not have 100 pages of spinning their wheels. Like a particular Hamilton sci-fi book that I had a hell of a time getting through the other year. I often have a couple of them going, that way if something is dragging and I'm not feeling like listening to that one right now, I can switch to another. The nice thing is when I have a series like Dark Tower, Cradle, Red Rising, the First Law books by Abercrombie that are just good and keep me really engaged the entire time. That tends to be when, weeks at a time will kind of slip away in that kind of ideal state. Unfortunately, the number of longer series that I haven't listened to is dwindling rapidly. So when I find something like the Spellmonger series, which was completely new to me and goes really well, I tend to jump on that. And whatever books I had in my queue get bumped back, and I'll just buy those, driving Jen crazy when she's checking the budget later. But the plus side for her is I listen to a ton, and then I just pass the really, really good ones on to her, so she doesn't have to waste her time with a bunch of garbage. Both of us do have a significantly harder time getting engaged with books when we're not hiking, just because I won't sit there with my eyes closed and just listen to the book. So I got to be doing something that's kind of low level, like walking, that I can do while my mind is paying attention to the book. So driving, hiking, etc. is when I do most of my audiobook listening. And no, not sponsored by Audible or anything. I pay for all my books. I have a monthly subscription. I just really like them because growing up, I would be reading these series books, and we always had to shop at used bookstores. And I always had a hell of a time completing trilogies, completing series. So it was a rare treat. I remember one Christmas, my parents bought me the entire set of Deathgate Cycle books by Weiss and Hickman. And that just blew me away because I had been trying to get those for so long, and the library didn't have, the middle one. I couldn't find it at any used bookstore. So I've always been a huge fan of what Amazon's done, first with the Kindle and then with Audible, trying to have everything available having it available for a reasonable price, and being able to get it on demand. Kids these days just don't appreciate how frustrating it was to have books 1 and 3 of a trilogy that you really wanted to read, but having it be just impossible to find number 2. I mostly do fantasy books with some sci-fi. I actually really like sci-fi. The problem I have is, short of The Expanse and a few things like that, it has been increasingly hard to find sci-fi books that don't have big dragging parts. That Peter Hamilton series I was talking about, I actually really liked. It was a really interesting version of a alien invasion with really alien insectoid drone aliens. Really enjoyed that when things were happening. And then in the middle, for like 50 pages, there would be something about hang gliding. The example I always give as far as these frustrating asides is the Foundation books by Asimov. I read them all, love them, except for those later ones where Asimov was obviously cashing in. And after he died, they got the 3 Bs to do kind of midquels to celebrate, I think, some anniversary. And I think it was Gregory Benford, who actually apparently teaches at UCI, where Jen went to school. He did this aside where Harry Seldon, psychohistory guy, etc., and his wife ended up going to a planet where they could insert their brain into monkeys and experience what it was like to be monkeys, have monkey sex, all those other things. It added nothing to the plot. It felt like he just had some writing prompt he had been playing with in a back drawer, and he's like, oh, I should dump this into XYZ book. Hence why I love The Expanse so much, because it has characters, it has a good story, it has mystery, but it kind of keeps things going. I think sometimes it's just the fact that I'm listening out here where, there is kind of discomfort and exertion and sometimes weather going on. So if the book starts to drag and get annoying, I'm more easily annoyed, I guess. Versus I used to do all my reading on a Kindle while I was flying. I was a consultant for, 7-10 years, something like that. And for about 7 of those years, I flew heavily. 5 of that was just to Boise, Idaho, pretty much every week. So I spent a lot of time in airports, a lot of time in planes. And you stick me on a plane where there's nothing else to do with a Kindle, I can get really, really sucked into a book. I try and do that on my average day off trail, and I have a really hard time kind of letting go to all the things that I feel like I should be doing, I want to be doing, etc. I am always interested in suggestions for things that people found good. I do keep my ear to the ground. I follow a bunch of, subreddits and things discussing fantasy, sci-fi, and a few other genres, just to pick up, anything that's interesting. I think Jen's actually going to try The Time Traveler's Wife, which is a book that I like time travel books. I will always go and read those. I just finished Dodo. Replay was another one that I just re-listened to that I really like. But I hated that book. I hated the characters by the end. Just felt, super pretentious. When they were reading long passages of French dialogue without translation or context, I was about to just chuck my phone off of a cliff. But see, my dear Taters has this little quirk where she is generally very judgmental of people. There were some actions in the Harry Dresden books later on where he had to do some less than good things in order to protect people he cared about. And to her, he has just gone evil and is irredeemable and deserves every punishment. Versus the start of Game of Thrones, the very, very, very start, has this one character throw an 8-year-old out a window for love. Now it's the love of his evil sister, so it's incestuous evil, yada yada. And the kid is one of the family that you're very sympathetic for. But see, Jen looks at that and goes, oh, that's okay, it was for love, and anything for love. I tried to make a joke card along those lines once, with Meatloaf's I'd do anything for love, but I wouldn't do that, involving the, chucking the kid out the window. But turns out any place that prints cards generally checks for copyrighted materials, and pictures of Meatloaf and screen caps from Game of Thrones apparently do count as copyright material and verboten. She's just been finishing The Expanse, and also the latest Dungeon Crawler Carl, which was really, really good. So figure she can put up with that a little bit, and I'm a little curious to see her reaction to that book. Which, you know, if I had to summarize, other than the bullshitty parts, you know, genetic random time travel a la Slaughterhouse-5, is an older man grooming a young girl across time. But every time that series gets adapted, they seem to make it romantic. I'm kind of in the middle of a bunch of different books. Just finishing Azarinth Healer, which is one of those, candy lit RPG books. Just finished Rise and Fall of Dodo, which time travel, really love the premise. However, I think I found an author that is worse than Stephen King on endings, because that ending was just incredibly non-satisfying. And I'm still quasi-obsessed with Twin Peaks after watching everything, so I listened to the final dossier, and I just bought the Secret History. Civilization. So as far as the dogs, I'm not overly worried, just because I feel like I've already been through the fire in Alabama, and nothing on the big 3 trails is going to be anywhere near that. I do know through another person, the person who was bit in Spring, northbound, they didn't have trekking poles, and these are the number one defense against dogs, because they come out of nowhere, and you can get these up in time versus the people with spray or guns, etc., etc. I've found generally can only use them after the fact, when the dog's generally not being as threatening. Hopefully, since he was bitten, that one was actually reported and dealt with. One of the problems you get when you get into rural areas, and especially where you have these through hiking trails, is we are very much on the move, don't have a lot of context for a given area, so it can take a lot of effort to actually look up what the proper authorities are, how to get a hold of animal control, do the report. Sometimes animal control has to be followed up with multiple times in order to actually get the report documented, so the person faces some sort of consequences and has to make a change. And I'm guilty of just moving on also, except for that one case on the Pinhoti where I talked to the owner, and they were just so obstinately not caring. Oh yeah, I'll kill the dog if it bites you, don't worry, just kick it, that it ticked me off, and I did whatever I had to report that one. But the pit bulls that nearly got me in that long road walk, for example, I don't think I reported that, other than a gut hook comment. Oh yeah, gotta love New Mexico. It also doesn't help that anytime you post about it, there's always somebody who claims that, oh, it's no big deal, they were just alerting. And here's the thing, I am not a dog person. I got bit by one as a kid, and have never been a huge fan of them. However, I can tell the difference between a dog with its tail wagging that is happy and just barking and making noise because they are idiotic animals, and one that is in attack mode, which is usually, growling, tail down, ears down. I have seen them go from one to the other rather quickly. Jen, who absolutely adores animals, almost got hit pretty bad at a campground. Dog came over, was acting friendly, and then it was like threw a light switch out of nowhere. The owners barely got it in time. And of course, I found many dog owners are just not good at judging their dog. It might be the sweetest thing in the world while it's around them, but might go into attack mode. And for whatever reason, I've talked to multiple dog owners out on the trail when their dog went haywire, who claim, oh, he doesn't normally do that, and thought it might have been like the hood that hikers have. Not that it matters. It's their responsibility to keep the damn things from attacking anybody. Part of me wishes I came at least partway down this last night. The sunset looked really spectacular, but it was mostly blocked by trees where I was. But honestly, I'm trying to ramp up here smoothly, not just jump back in too hard and re-injure myself. So I wanted to have a reasonable split of mileage between yesterday and today. Now in another week, it would be a completely different calculus. I would want to push into town earlier so I could get at least a partial down day while I was resupplying. Aha, the one water source. That is rather nice. I almost came down here last night, and considering how thirsty I was, I almost wish I had. After drinking a bunch of water at night and my 2 cups of coffee this morning and nothing else to drink, that's all I had left. And here we go. I'm just going to view these as warm-ups for next year. And here goes the first one. Okay, it stayed in its yard. My guess is the bad ones that gave people trouble are closer into town because there's an alt where you can shortcut and come from the south of town. Others mentioned taking. This is actually the part that I wanted the noise canceling headphones for. I have no problem being aware of traffic walking on this side, but the loud trucks and motorcycles have a tendency to make it impossible for me to listen to whatever I'm listening to. So far I've had a couple of dogs, but they've stayed in the road, or out of the road I should say. And welcome to Cuba. Well, I found isobutane, which is usually my big concern, so now I'm just looking for the hotel and figuring out food. Okay, that's my hotel over there. Picked it because the option that was like $20 cheaper said it didn't have good internet, and I was hoping to get something uploaded. Okay, got town food, got a shower, hydrating my butt off, and looking ahead water-wise and food carry-wise. And I'm gonna try and get my food shopping done tonight. So I actually had good news on the resupply. It was all set up to do north sides, and I was just saying got to get to Grant and then I can get decent stuff. And then I found these. It's a different brand, but totally going to try them. So, assuming this works, I have my minute rice plus this plus taco seasoning. And that'll make for a much better dinner than the north sides.